Hello everyone, welcome to my review for Christmas Jafar. I'm so sorry I'm so late. I guess I was stressed out by school a bit because I ended up sleeping for 15 hours after I was completely done with school. And now it is 6 a.m. and I'm working on this, so what a nightmare this is. This was supposed to be at worst released at like 9 or 10 p.m. yesterday, but oh well. I messed up, what can I say? Also, before I start, I guess I should mention the fact that Show Me Your Build will make a comeback today. Again, this is kind of why I wish it was out yesterday, but yeah, I'm going to be doing Show Me Your Build at 3:30 p.m. EST. So, to put it simply, since it's 6:30 EST right now, I don't know when this is going to go up, probably like around 7 a.m. But it should be in roughly 9 hours. So, yeah. Anyway, let's get to the review now. So, Jafar comes up as a speedy armored unit. Already there, he passed the test between being irrelevant from the start or actually having a chance. It is worth noting that he has a stat line extremely similar to Eliwood. Eliwood is at 38 attack, 32 speed, so a bit better. Though for a range unit, that does not have a pref, of course, that provides speed or anything of the sort. It's a lot more of a problem. You tend to want to have like 34 speed, so okay. 32 speed for a melee armored unit is just perfect. Because, you know, well, actually it's more like 33, but it gets to 33 because of the first merge anyway. So Eliwood is like in a pristine position, whereas Jafar has a bit too many points in speed, but it's not to a point where it's Nino level, to say the least. His attack is also not bad, though again, because he's a ranged unit, he ends up at 12 attack per weapon instead of 14, and he's also behind 3 attack to Eliwood. So overall, Eliwood is a bit better when it comes down to offense. Why am I comparing the two? Because their stat line is just that similar. Jafar has 2 more def but 2 less res. This is kind of a problem for Jafar, but I'm going to go around it a bit later. So, as far as this kit is concerned, good armor is just pretty irrelevant. It's a type of skill that just doesn't really work with the armored playstyle. The armored playstyle is just, we tank those. That's basically the strategy if you want to use them as a pure armored team, which don't really happen anymore, but some people try to use them for stalling in AR and it just doesn't work. Couldn't be me, but oh well. It just doesn't work. And funny enough, it's still not in the 3 to 4 star pool. You'd think they would have given that to Valbar now that I think about it. But no, it's still not in the pool. The only units that have gold armor that are easy access are Eliwood and Jafar, which are 2 very good units, which you should never kill for. And the other unit is Hector, which why the heck would you kill him off for that and not DC is beyond me. I know you can give both, but you don't really give DC to only armored unit now, do you? It's honestly surprising that it's still this rare, considering how bad of a skill it is, but that's just me. Def Res Bond is okay, though 9 times out of 10 you'll prefer to either use Attack Def Bond or Attack Res Bond, because the thing with Def Res Bond is it kind of requires you to get to a point where you have the same amount of Def and Res, or kind of similar, to really gain full use of this. And in a lot of cases, the units that do gain from this typically just have, well, shall we say, garbage attack, and therefore you kind of just have to uneven it so you can use Attack Res Bond or Attack Def Bond to make up for their attack, or use Fierce Stance or anything of the sort. So, yeah, and as an A slot, it tends to be very iffy. It's basically bootleg Fortress Def Res, but without the added benefit of being able to hit enough res that you can just, you know, get to in a position where you can ploy the enemy, or get in a position where, because you have a DC weapon, it's just a straight upgrade, and also, you know, you can get panic for having someone next to you like Def Res Bond would. So, like, Fortress Def Res is just so miles better than Def Res Bond. And the thing with Fortress Def Res is, hot take, but it's a very niche skill. It is a very strong skill for the units that can use it, like Legendary Tiki, or I guess Fallen Tiki also for that matter. Units that already come with a DC weapon are very strong with this if they are meant to be tanks in the first place. The problem is, that's not all the units. That's why it's called niche. And guess what? Jafar is not even a unit that could use Def Res Bond too well as his A slot, let alone Fortress Def Res. So, whatever, right? Def Res Bond is just very iffy. It's the type of skill that you want in your Seal slot, but not in your A slot. Because Seal slot just... They are flexible, yes, but typically you just want to have more stats from them. Your A slot will typically have something that's more technical. Bonus doubler, distant counter, and so on and so forth. So you don't really have a space for just a Bond skill, unless it's a Bond skill tier 4 skill, because tier 4 skill completely nullifies debuff you might have in 2 skills, or 2 stats rather. So, it's kind of iffy, especially considering Rutger has Attack Def Bond available at 4-star, and Winter Cecilia has Attack Res Bond available at 4-star. At least I think she has it available at 4-star. It's been a while since I checked on Cecilia. Just overall an odd pick, but still, you would not want to fodder him anyway. So the first merge is actually quite good. Since all of his stats are basically 9s, as if he's from the nunnery games, he basically gets 1 point in attack and speed, and because it's like 9, 9, 9, 8, he basically gets 2 points in attack on his first merge, 1 speed. So in other words, that's pretty good. It actually helps him patch his attack a bit, which, while not garbage, is very welcome for a first merge. Now, let's talk about comparison. There's really not a whole lot you can compare to him. These guys are colorless for one, but the other thing is that's very worth mentioning is the fact that Dozla can become a decently speedy armored unit with daggers. That's good and all, but he kind of needs a Bond skill to really function, or darting stance. Jafar doesn't need that, and as a result, you basically can just use him in a more free way. In fact, you really don't need anything buffing his speed at all, except like speed tactic. You just basically need a speed buff, and you're good to go. You're already at 48 speed. So you're off to a good start. Because Dozla is really reliant on having someone next to him. Jafar doesn't. And honestly, if you compare the rest of the stats, he's not that far behind. Same HP, 2 less attack, 4 less def. But the fact that he doesn't have to be next to someone is super helpful for him. And it also means your seal slot is open. Because even if you do want to use a bond, you don't have to have a bond that boosts your speed. That's kind of one of the problems Dozla runs into. He wants to have a res refine and then like speed res bond. Whereas Jafar can just use something like, oh, a def refine, attack res bond, and oh, look at that, he has 3 more attack than Dozla now. And still more speed than Dozla now. And, well, I think you get the point. At this point, he basically has 1 less def and 3 less res. But 3 more attack for it, as well as 1 more speed. Not to mention, he's a Grail unit. He's basically very cheap to build. So overall, that's not bad, considering he doesn't get to have IVs. And Cecilia is, I'm gonna be honest here, you're going to see two characters going down on the tier list. These have been characters I've been thinking about demoting for a long time. Because armored unit without speed are, well, let's just say a year ago they were a lot better off. As the meta progressed and as the meta shifted, we're going more and more toward units that have speed. So unless you're a unit that can actually keep up with that, like no one. But no, like for example Nagi, by basically having so much attack you can one-shot Legendary Ulm semi-consistently, on top of being able to tank AoEs. Unless you're someone similar like this that carves itself a niche based on its utility, another one would be Surtur. If you don't have speed, you are dead on arrival. And Cecilia is still decent, mind you, which is why I did not like demote her 50 fucking ranks. I've only really lowered her by 1 tier, and I did the same with Zephiel. Jafar doesn't have the problem, so he's already automatically better. And I know what some people will say, the fact that Cecilia's colorless is very helpful, and to that I say, not really. Being a color doesn't really hurt as much as it did a year back, I'm gonna be honest. Cause you have to realize, right? A year back, I think Cecilia had what, 168 BST? I'm not sure actually. But BST for a ranged unit was a lot lower. What I mean by this is just that unless your stats were really good overall, you know, you were not that great to begin with, and so being colorless was better. But now, a green dagger unit like Jafar has the same amount of stat as a legendary Eliwood. Just to give you an idea. He has 174 to 175 BST, so the stat line is actually very good and easy to work with. That's another reason why min-max monsters are not as good as they once were, because min-max monster with 175 BST versus a non-min-maxed unit is just worse. Legendary Tiki is a good example of this. A lot of people consider her to be a lot worse than what she really is. And that's because on low merges, you don't really see her full potential. I think plenty of people at this point have seen my Legendary Tiki from my streams, and I don't think any of them are really thinking that she's that bad anymore, at least from people that have seen her in action. Mine hits insane amount of speed. I believe she hits like 51, while still having like almost 60 attack, and on Astra season I think she has like 60 def. Like, it's ridiculous. The fact that you're a min-max monster means every merge count. On low merges, they're a bit worse. On higher merges, they're a lot better. That's just how it is. And Cecilia, on high merges, basically has 4 points of speed wasted, for example. The attack, not bad. It's tied to Jafar, by the way. The def, could need some help. Jafar has a point more, and then there's the res, which he actually beats Jafar in. But you have to realize, it doesn't matter. That 10 res difference is only good for one thing, and it's for ploying. And yes, that is a fair point. Although, you can make Jafar able to ploy if you use the Fury Dagger. So, a bit of a cop-out, but it's still worth mentioning. He can hit 37 res and 38 res with flowers once you give him the Fury Dagger, which is quite welcome if you prefer him to be more of a utility unit for a season or two, or, you know, depending on what your needs are at the moment. But, yeah, Cecilia did not really age well, whereas Eliwood just aged as good as you can get. Eliwood is still the best lance unit of its entire class. As far as Jafar is concerned, I would not say he's the best green armored unit. Obviously there's Sophis, and Sophis is impossible to beat, but even without Sophis out of there, there's one unit that does just about everything better than he does, and that's Amelia. Amelia with a Res Plus, just because her weapon is 16 might, whereas Jaffar's is 12, because he doesn't have a pref. Well, Amelia will typically have more attack, more speed because of her weapon refine, more def because of her weapon refine. The rest should be about tied, and about the same HP, so yeah, on top of having a cooldown -1 as the base of the weapon. No matter how you slice it, Amelia is a slightly better unit. That said, that's basically, outside of Sophis and Amelia, there's no other green unit better than Jafar as far as versatility goes. Like, Surtur is really good in the cheerleader meta that's now dead. Nagi is really good against AR for dealing with two particular units at the same time, where if Lilina is present, that's kind of a problem. Unless you're building her like I did mine, but that's a different story entirely, and I won't talk about mine here. That's going to be its entire video by itself, which should be in a month or so. We'll see. So yeah. As a result, Jafar is just really good, and I'm kind of glad for just Bisquick in general, because I know he's been like wanting to come back purely because of this Jafar, and this Jafar is actually good, so hey, good. So as far as builds are concerned, set on the left is the set that most people should be running. It's the easiest set to work with, and honestly, you only need, well, you need Close Counter and Special Fighter, which, that's kind of a problem, especially since the Takumi week is now over. I don't think he comes back, unless we get like another whole cycle, which, that is awkward as all hell. Unless he's still around, but I don't think he is. Actually, let me double check on this. Oh, yeah, no, he's gone. Oh well. But yeah, Close Counter is a bit tricky to get, because the only units that have it are seasonal. I believe you can get Close Counter from Oshiden Festival, what's his face? Xander. If you want to have this, right now, the odds are the same as a four-man banner rerun of the unit, by the way. So don't think the 6% rate are as good as it looks. The more units are on a banner, the worse are the odds, and the fact that there's 8 units, they kind of had to double the rate and remove the chance of pity breaks, because otherwise it was just worse than a normal banner, period. So yeah, this is a fairly solid set. The set on the right is a more aggressive set. This set is just meant to be enemy phase. This set is also not reliant on bond skill, as you can see. It relies on Broadleaf Fan, which also is on the new on that other banner with Summer Lilina. If you don't know what Broadleaf Fan does, it simply just takes enemy debuff and adds it to your damage. Similar to a Blade Tome, but it works on your enemy's debuff. Since the dagger itself does -7 def res, and since attack speed smoke does -7 attack speed, you can kind of imagine where this is going. It's an extra 35 attack once all the debuffs are up. And Jafar is actually not bad at killing either, which makes it very easy for him to just continue. Noontime is here to give him some sustain, and also, I just want to point out, he hits 93 attack once all the debuffs are up, so it's really hard for him to fail to kill, and if he does, say, 40 damage with Noontime, he heals himself for 12. And considering he has 41 def and 40 res, that's pretty solid. Another thing you can do is just ditch Special Fighter altogether. You can, in fact, just run Brave Lucina to support him instead, and then run Vantage. If you do run Vantage, you might prefer to run Moonbow instead, however. But yeah, it's overall fairly solid for him. Makes him a very dangerous unit because, see, the other problem that typical Broadleaf fan user have struggled with is the second that there's a horse unit that uses, let's say here, how do we call this? Restore. Then you start hitting like a wet noodle for most of these units. Soph is probably the best other user of Broadleaf fan, but the other problem that he runs into is that his def and res are other garbage. As a result, he tends to get himself killed the second that something with harsh command happens to just happen, rally traps happen, or anything similar to this. So, yeah. Jafar doesn't really have that problem. He still is very speedy. 41 def and 40 res is hard to go through, so he definitely can still hold his own. And that, my friend, is a huge boon. Moving on to the second page of builds. So, this is the more aggressive versions of what I posted earlier. Minty Cane allows him to have some kind of sustain, so he can just completely give up on healing himself through something like Noontime, Soul, Aether, and instead just either have a healer with physics or just rely purely on Minty Cane, though I would say having a physics healer as well is added, it's an added layer of security. Because here's the thing, right? You kind of run into one problem with this set is, yes, you heal for 10 HP per fight, but if the enemy does, you know, a decent chunk of damage, you might be in danger. That said, he is bulky enough to be to a point where he can just constantly heal himself up, unless you're talking about something like AR. But yeah, this is overall fairly solid for him. And Ignis is gonna be no slouch. 44 def basically means that you're going to do 35 damage with Ignis. So, whatever you're dealing with, if you double them, they're dead, basically. And if you don't double them, you'll absolutely just do quite a good chunk of damage. Keep also in mind, in general for Jafar, if you have Bottled Juice, which is Kagero's weapon, you can combo this into Brave Lucina and you get a special fighter that works at all HP. That opens your B slot for a lot more options, like Special Spiral. It's worth mentioning because then you can just get hit, proc Ignis immediately, preventing some damage sometimes, which is definitely welcomed. Or you can just use Vantage instead and try to just charge your Ignis as a result in a different way, but that's a bit more iffy. On the right side is something similar, but it just provides you more bulk. Goody Boots is very good on him because, as I said, he doesn't need any speed anymore, so you can just really bulk up. And Brave Lucina is quite good for him because every points that he gets from Brave Lucina is not wasted. Outside of speed, but sometimes the 3 extra speed can actually do the difference. It's still worth mentioning. But yeah, Goody Boots is really good to just prevent any damage from happening in the first place. Then again, as I said earlier, a healer can definitely make the difference. And now it's more aggressive set. This time it's just AoEs. Dragon Slasher is really good just for AoEs because it has already bearing in the weapon already. Now keep in mind, if you're afraid of Sophis, you might not want Dragon Slayer, but instead want the Sky Mahugi. The Sky Mahugi is from Oshiden Festival Ryoma. A Shidan Festival Ryoma's dagger is a armor killer, which will be effective against Sophis, unlike this dagger. So it's worth mentioning. They both have the already bearing effect, so, you know. I will just say that Dragon Slasher looks cooler as a weapon, though. And the set on the right is more so if you don't care about not having already bearing at all. Because Red Hot Ducks basically gives you extra true damage based on your speed compared to the enemy. Because of Life and Death 4, your speed is at 55, so unless you're dealing with something with over 45 speed, you're going to get the full 7 damage off. It's 7 damage on the AoE itself, 7 damage on every hit, and so it's overall really good. And for people who wonder why I'm not using Flashing Blade 4 in any of these sets, here's the answer. 5 damage versus 10 is not worth it, just not worth it. And even if you use attack plus 3 as a seal, you're still behind in damage. It's just not worth it in this case. Life and Death is overall better, but this might change in the future if we end up getting something like Life and Death as a seal. As for that, well, time will tell. Honestly, we don't know. Maybe we'll get attack plus 4 at one point. After all, we're going to get, what, our 7th attack seal? Thank you, Squad Assault. Very cool. Could not give us a 2nd Heavy Blade seal or a 2nd Flashing Blade seal? Gotta just get a 7th HP seal. Yeah, boy. Anyway, with that covered, let's talk about the tier list. As I said, Cecilia and Zephiel went down a tier. This is purely because they're not as speedy as other units. If you wonder why BK is that low, is still on the same tier as Zephiel, I do think Zephiel is still slightly better, because the main issue that BK runs into is the fact that his res is utter garbage. Even if he has a DC weapon, it's kind of iffy, and he typically wants to ditch the DC weapon for something like Slaying Edge anyway. So, So you're kind of stuck building on his res, whereas Zephiel can just have better bulk overall. And another thing is that Zephiel just overall has access to just the same thing as Zelgus does, but in a lot of cases BK can really use it nearly as well as Zephiel does. So, And as I said, Cecilia did not age well. So yeah, Jafar is S tier. Feels really weird that JMK is like the only S tier now. I might actually just add a new tier to the tier list, just so I can kind of like squish it down a little, because there's a lot of S- units, and I do think that, you know, I might just add a new tier, probably like A- or something. But we'll see. Time will tell. If we do, well, I kind of want to wait for Avel to get demoted. Let's be fair, she probably will. But I'd rather make sure, because Joshua, Astram, Masked Marth, a lot of heroes are going to get, like, lower on the tier list. Avel is just that good of a unit, and does basically all of these units roll, but, like, just better. So, same thing with Marita, like, she's going to be C tier. That's just kind of what it is. Tobin would be B tier probably as well. But yeah. I probably should have raised Clive a tier actually because of his breath. I forgot that he actually got one. That's my bad on that one. But yeah, Jafar is really good. Now, I know what people will ask me. You've said throughout the video how Jafar is very similar to Eliwood. What is the reason why Eliwood is a tier above Jafar? Here's why. Elwood has 29 res. I did say I was going to get back to this at the start of the video, but Elwood has 29 res, right? So if you plus 10 him, he has 33, 34 with flowers. If you take a res refine, you're at 38. You can ploy with this dude. So on top of having this insanely good offensive stat line, Elwood on top of all this, is able to ploy. And it actually doesn't hurt the way he's used either. It just means you're going to be using Speed Def Bond whenever that comes out, or Steady Posture. Whoop, sorry. So yeah, it's overall quite good. And Jafar cannot ploy. The only way he can ploy is, there's two ways, actually. First way would be to use the Fury weapon. And the second way would be to have a res legendary hero, like Legendary Marth, Guntra, or Legendary Azura. So it's a lot more difficult to work with. Oh, and before I forget, Attack Res Bond, you can also use Def Res Bond instead, but that requires you to use a Res Refine, because it puts your bulk to 4140, right? So Def Res Bond can be a bit better if you think your damage is good enough as is. Other than this, yeah, I'd say everything else is about right. Oh, and with the AoEs, the only time you would want to use Flashing Blade 4 is if you use Armored Boots with a healer to keep your HP high so you can just keep chugging AoEs. But that's more, you know, iffy than anything, right? So, yeah. With this said, I think my tier list update is done now. This tier list will probably undergo a lot of change because of Abel's demotion whenever she does get demoted, if she does get demoted. So yeah, in conclusion, Jafar is actually quite good. And I gotta say, he looks pretty baller for a Christmas unit. Christmas units rarely looks cool, I'm gonna be honest. I hate how most of them look. But Jafar actually doesn't look bad. Which... wow, that's weird. His chibi actually looks really cool. It just basically looks like his FE7 sprite, but with Christmas colors. It's so weird. I love it. But yeah, overall a very solid unit. I'd say at least get the first merge and see how he plays. He does require a lot more hard to get fodder than LA Elwood, because LA Elwood you can kill either Nagi or Sophis for DC and Special Fighter. I believe also Ellie Ike, or Grail's Devoted Ike, also has DC and Special Fighter. So yeah, overall there's that, of course, but other than this, yeah. That's kind of the main problem. Close counter is still very hard to get. I don't understand what IS is thinking, honestly, as far as that is concerned. But, yeah. I think I've said all I had to say about this. And I'll see you all later for Show Me Your Build. Have a nice night, everyone. Or day, I suppose. It feels so weird to be recording at 7 AM. See ya.